All right, let's have a look at this. Hello, hello, hello. All right, what's up, everybody? This is George C.L.C. Samuels, and you are tuning in to the rebooted edition of Bitcoin Will Come. Now, apologies there. I thought that my microphone was potentially not working, but it looks like the mic is. So, if you are tuning in, you might be tuning in from previous shows or episodes for the It Will Come show. And so, if you're wondering what this is about, Bitcoin Will Come show, or just this series, was actually created a good number of years ago, and it was built at a time when Bitcoin was actually starting to come more and more into sort of the mainstream mindset and awareness. And this was around maybe back in 2017, and it's been a while since I've actually done a show for Bitcoin Will Come. And so I'm rebooting this, and I'm going to be seeking your help, because since this is the first episode in a long while, I would love to hear about what you would expect from a show like this, especially if you've been following my work in general. Again, if you're coming in from the It Will Come show, this is going to be focused specifically on Bitcoin news. And when I talk about Bitcoin, I'm talking about BSV specifically. And I'll always put a reminder for people to ensure that they know what I'm talking about when I say Bitcoin. And I'll explain a bit about like why there's a difference in what I refer to Bitcoin and what most people know. All right. So with that, let's dig straight in. And again, hello to everybody who's currently tuning in. This is a rebooted version of the Bitcoin Will Come series. And first up, I just wanted to kind of go through some news, all right? Some news about what's been happening in the Bitcoin world in general, and then tie it into sort of the economic factors, sort of the latest happenings with fintech, and just provide some commentaries. Every now and then, I may bring in some guests, people that I know in the space, to talk a little bit more, dive in a little bit more about this specific subject area, because I think it's a big one. And again, a shout out to those who have actually requested for me to actually just separate out any talk around Bitcoin related aspects. So it's just more focused. Okay, so first news article that we have here, Bitcoin is becoming more trustworthy than the big banks. All right. Now, I find this very, very fascinating because, well, one, I've been following since 2013, but two, we are at a point where essentially a new world order is probably just around the corner. It's probably already in the process of taking place. And we also have a situation where we're seeing the entire economy, money system sort of fold in on itself, right? And a lot of us who have been following this space for a while have kind of been expecting this. But now, especially with what happened with the global pandemic that we find ourselves in, it's really highlighted those gaps. All right. So what this means is usually whenever there is a financial collapse, either the bailouts happen, which have been happening with the stimulus packages, or you start to see people flood back to something more safe and secure, like either gold, silver, and now Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, in terms of the mind space, has a good chance of becoming a new money for the world, right? And so I'm keeping a very close eye on it, because it's an important time in history, to be honest. And so if you pay attention, you might be able to set yourself up better and well. And just a note for most of you watching, whenever I talk about things related to Bitcoin or money or finances, this is not legal advice. So I do have to make sure I put that disclaimer in. These are essentially just my thoughts, my ramblings, and I hope you get something from it. Okay, so that's on that side. Again, for people who are just tuning in for the first time, I mentioned, right, there are sort of three different versions of Bitcoin out in the market right now. Now, there's a bit of politics in this space around it, about who is the true Bitcoin, etc. If we go by just the name, BTC Bitcoin is who currently holds it. Then there's also Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. Okay, so These are currently, the site that I'm showing you right now is coinmarketcap.com. This is used a lot to see sort of what the price is of all the cryptocurrencies that are out in the market right now. And generally, I don't use this for trading or speculating. I'm far more interested in sort of the companies or the future companies that are going to be building on top of a single sturdy blockchain. Okay, so let's move into the next article in news. So here, Facebook launches WhatsApp digital payment service. The reason why I find this useful to share with you is because you need to, again, just look at sort of the moves that are being made in the background. So while everybody, of course, is focused on the global pandemic, a lot of businesses, a lot of digital companies are still progressing ahead, still moving forward with their plans. Now, if you haven't heard about Libra, Facebook attempted to essentially create their own cryptocurrency, digital payment currency called Libra. Now, that unfortunately, or fortunately, failed miserably. And so it looks like now they're just pushing ahead to create Facebook Pay, which pushes directly into WhatsApp. Now, out of all the companies in the world, I would say that Facebook are probably the ones who have the best chance of making this happen, because they have a good majority, a good share of the market to be able to just roll stuff out. So I wouldn't completely throw them out of the water just yet. All right, so yeah, this is happening already. I think India already has some issues with WhatsApp Pay. So you can see here. However, the firm's efforts to launch WhatsApp Pay in India have been held up for 2 years by regulators. In April, Facebook announced that it had bought a 10% stake in Indian telecoms, and this deal gives Facebook a powerful ally in Reliance. So yeah, so they're making power moves. Now, another piece of news, if you aren't familiar with this name, probably one of the most controversial, infamous names in this space, Craig Wright, who has proclaimed to be the creator of Bitcoin, the man behind the name Satoshi Nakamoto. And whether you believe it to be true or not, it's definitely interesting to see sort of what Craig and those who are sort of following along or working with him have been doing in the background. They've actually continued building despite all of the the battles and the politics around him through a company called nChain. So he's the chief scientist at this company called nChain. Highly recommend checking it out. So if you are wanting to visit nChain, there you can just go nChain. All right. So the reason why I bring them up is because they have probably one of the largest patent portfolios right now in the blockchain space. And that's sort of where my eyes have been outside of all the speculation, because I think in the future these can be enforced, right? And if you know anything about the business world, the world of patents is definitely a different one. It's a different game, but it's one that is played. And so, yeah, essentially, there was something that happened recently where Craig Wright essentially said that the keys to his Bitcoin were hacked, and he essentially put some key people from BTC on notice. Now, some people really don't like the patent trolling. As you can see here, Samson Mao, who's, I believe, heading up Blockstream, another company in the BTC space, and he, essentially just people making fun of Craig Wright. But if you dig into the story and the history, yeah, I guess I feel more for Craig Wright than I do for the others who are essentially trying to take Bitcoin and make it go down a path that they want. Now, just imagine if you were the creator of something and other people took your invention and took it down a path that you never expected or never wanted. You could argue that, hey, Craig probably should have done a better job at defending what he had, but at the same time, it wouldn't make it less annoying. So, those are sort of my thoughts on this news. But and as I said, whether you think this is worth looking into or not, that is completely up to you. All right. So here I've just shared a few tweets, and this tweet specifically is from Kevin Pham. Shout out to Kevin. He was highlighting an episode I did for the It Will Come show. And the It Will Come show, that particular episode was actually about why, when you're building a community, you should start with the question who versus why. And Kevin is talking about BSV not being a real community, and I would probably go as far as saying that many cryptocurrency projects they seek to feel a part of a community, but generally I've seen, because it's money involved, people just can get very nasty, and so the communities or the groups end up splitting into further and further factions. So I tell people to be very wary of, when you're seeking community, understanding what your own motivations are, but also understand that because you're in the realm of money and not everybody is as disciplined when it comes to money, that the community you're seeking may be superficial. And it's just a harsh reality that I've seen in this space for some time now. Regardless, this is something that I harp on about, that when it comes to the Bitcoin space, you don't necessarily need to be looking at Bitcoin itself, right, from a trading speculative aspect. You need to be looking at the next companies that are coming, right? So I've heard this used quite a lot. It's like, don't focus on where the puck is, right, in reference to hockey, ice hockey, but look at where the puck is going, right? And set yourself up to receive the puck where you're going, okay? And so I think a lot of people are just focused on where the puck is right now, as opposed to where it is going, and setting yourself up there. So if you want to be able to set yourself up for where the puck is going, then look at the companies that are building on top of Bitcoin, BSV, all right? In BTC, they are using something called Lightning Network, and companies are building while leveraging something called Lightning Network. Personally, this is my opinion, I think it's unnecessary, but it is what it is. It's not going to stop people from doing what they want to or feel like they need to. But in the BSV space, I look at companies that are looking to leverage Bitcoin as a plumbing system, and are already creating applications to solve problems where Bitcoin just falls into the background, okay? And so yes, if you're also looking to build a community, right, ask yourself if that's even needed for your particular business. Not all businesses need to have a community around their brand. And so yeah, if you would like to learn more about communities in general, that's where you can subscribe to my other segment, the It Will Come show. Here, this is another tweet, just looking at sort of the sentiment. Something that I look at in particular is sort of the cultural elements. You can get a real good sort of feel for that through Twitter. Again, whether you like it or hate it. And here, these are just essentially people in the BTC camp. Their motivations was to make Bitcoin intentionally expensive per transaction, because they're just looking at it as digital gold, right? And it being digital gold means that they're thinking about large sums of money, right, being transferred. And so for them, right, in relative to that, $100 for an on-chain transaction, it doesn't bother them. But they are building and only thinking about the first world. Bitcoin, from the very beginning, one of its defining features was its ability to handle micropayments. So that means if you wanted to send something for 0.02 cents, right, and it cost you $100, that makes no sense whatsoever. But it's amazing to see how human beings can impose limitations on themselves sometimes, right? And this is why essentially BTC, in my opinion again, isn't being allowed to actually do what it can. And so I follow BSV because it is showing what is possible when you actually remove those limits and allow it to scale. So again, just letting everybody know that it's up to you to do your own research. Here, I was talking about the companies, right? So Streamanna is a company that essentially is a YouTube for Bitcoin and allows you to sort of watch videos based on, per seconds. And what happens in the background is that it will just deduct, after you finish watching, it'll deduct the payment for the number of seconds that you've watched instead. And because the payments are so small, it doesn't, it doesn't really take much from your experience or make you feel like you're losing money, right? Because it's so small and seemingly insignificant. But what this does, it just provides sort of a really interesting way to remove the need for ads in the future, right? This allows the content creators to get paid, right? And if they scale and more people watch, then of course they get paid more. And for you, you're able to still watch, doesn't disrupt your experience, and they're just seconds that are taken in micropayments. Okay, so go and check out streamanity.com if you want to learn a little bit more about that. Here now, Adam Back, this guy here, he's just another key player in the BTC camp, one of the core developers. And again, I find this fascinating. If you're not aware, guys like Adam Back, they didn't really believe in Bitcoin to begin with. And so the reason why we have issues with BTC right now is that they again want to take Bitcoin down a path or vision that they see, but they want to leverage the name to achieve their ends, right? But they're not even invested in Bitcoin and what it can do. They don't think it can actually work, so they're creating something else, but siphoning off of the Bitcoin network effect, and it's they're not really. They don't really keep this a secret. Like, it's quite public knowledge. I was having a conversation with Adam Back, and to be fair, at least he did converse with me, and we can agree to disagree on stuff. But it was just startling to me that they can continue on this way, and continue to want to hold the name, understand, right, because it benefits them financially, but it's dishonest, and it's disingenuous. So for me, I personally have issues with that, but of course there's a lot of people in the world who are dishonest or disingenuous and still manage to make lots of money, right? But I just feel like something needs to change, right? I think the incentives in our world, we should be able to get rewarded for better behavior, but it is what it is. And then finally, right, talking about how we're rebooting the Bitcoin Will Come this series, I thought I'd just share with you, we have an Asia Pacific BSV meetup coming up at the end of this month, on the 26th. So if you are interested in attending, just go to the URL. So just give me one sec, I can zoom out a bit so you can see. Okay, so if you can see at the top, guys, there is this link here. So hopin.to events/BSV APAC. When you go to that page, you'll be able to register for this event. And it's open to anyone really, but we'll just have a focus on sort of the key development that's been taking place in the Asia Pacific arena. All right, and so we'll talk about all things, of course, Bitcoin SV, but we'll also talk about the blockchain space, enterprise versus consumer products that are looked at, and ways that companies are sort of rebooting themselves in 2020 because a lot has changed, right, due to COVID-19, etc. So hopefully I see some of you guys there. All right, and that essentially concludes today's session for Bitcoin Will Come. Now, because this was just a first session of the reboot, I really actually just want to hear from you as to what you would like to see. So although I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that it is going to be about Bitcoin, BSV, I may touch on, of course, some of the other Bitcoins in the space because I know they're all related, blockchain, and just general fintech news, insights, and updates. I'll also bring in some guests if you'd like to be on the show to talk about things. I'm more than open. But this series will happen every Wednesday from here on out, and I think I put a question out actually about whether you would like to see this as part of the general It Will Come show series or segment in the same channel, or if you prefer it to be in a separate channel. All right. And with that, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next week.